Hello, everyone. Thanks for watching. I'm Alex Bean, a contributor to the music site 360degreesound.com, where we bring you music from all angles. Today, I'm joined by Keith Harris. He's a two-time Grammy Award-winning musical director and drummer for the Black Eyed Peas. And he's currently the musical director for the Backstreet Boys residency at the Sphere in Las Vegas. Welcome, Keith. We're glad to have you.
Hey, thanks for having me. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, we're so excited you're here. And of course, we've gotten so many questions because it's still a relatively new venue to most of the American public. The Sphere in Las Vegas has redefined live music experiences, and we see that all the time on social media. What was your vision as the musical director for the residency, and how did you approach that? Because I know it's a much different experience than other venues.
Absolutely. It was a mega beast to say the least. The venue has well over 100,000 speakers by itself. So, in processing that, just the clarity involved, all the different zones of being able to move different musical pieces in different places of the stadium, we had to keep all of that in mind in the creation process in the studio. So I started recording all the live music in April of this year. Backstreet Boys doesn't have a live band on site, but myself and all my super friends that have been playing for the Backstreet Boys in studio for years now. We all got in the studio, and my directive to my guys that everything had to be very technically precise and very clean, because once we separated all the different types of audio and all of the different types of speakers, you could hear everything. So if there's noise in between a guitar riff or something like that, you could hear it clear as day. So that was job number one with the actual recording process for the show, was to make sure all the audio was done at a high bit rate, 96K, and then also there's no clicks, no pops, no breathing, and really had to be meticulous about making sure all the audio was very pristine for this venue.
With that process, is there a certain amount of is there a concern with that? Because like you said, that difference between venues, were you kind of fearful when you got in there for the first time, or was it one of those things where there's just so much energy behind something like that that you kind of blow caution to the wind and you make adjustments where you can?
Well, we kind of use the same format. Me and my front of house engineer James McCullough, he's an amazing engineer, and we kind of have our game plan before we went into the process of recording the music. For his needs at front of the house, he's mixing the show so everyone hears everything the way we discussed. So in that format, because we had everything separated, he mixes it as if it was a live band there. So every drum, so the kick, kick inside out, snare top and bottom, toms, overhead. He has individual tracks. So we're up at about a 200 and some odd track count for the show. When you add in all the musical elements, sound effects, vocals, and pre-recorded this, that, and the others. So he's mixing about 200 tracks of audio live.
Wow.
So, like I said, that was a conversation we had early on to say, hey, what's our game plan here? Okay, we want to have our strings sit above people in the venue. Maybe we want to have our guitars pan a little to the right. We want our vocals to have a really big reverb on certain songs to make it seem like it's a heavenly choir type of deal. So we have to go in really visually and sonically for this particular application, because when once you see the visuals of the show, it's amazing. So we had to make sure that our audio matched the visuals as well, and make sure that the visuals and the audio are in the right space for the particular scene of the show.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, that's the first thing that we see online from those shows. It's not necessarily what we hear, it's the visuals,
Yeah.
what people are taking in. I wanted to kind of dial things back just a little because you've had a very, very lengthy career, and I know we'll get back to the show eventually because there's a lot to unpack there. But just going back to being with the Black Eyed Peas for all these years, I always wonder this when I'm asking people, how has that role evolved over the years? Because there are a lot of highs and there are a lot of lows. And
Mhm.
I can only imagine like there are periods of time where you feel like you're in tip-top shape on top of the world, and then other days where you're like, are we still relevant? What's our next step? So how do you deal with that creative process despite where the meter may be on a group?
Yeah, that's a very good question. I think that's a really wonderful thing about the Black Eyed Peas. I've been in the band over 20 years now, about 22 years. I started in 2003. And throughout my time, my evolution, I just came in as the drummer, when I first came into the band. And then that evolved into me having more roles of a producer and songwriting, which led to, having about four songs on the end, two singles, two number one singles with the Black Eyed Peas. In which current days now I'm still playing drums, but now I'm the musical director for the Black Eyed Peas as well. So that's the evolution of myself personally. But the evolution of the band, I think they are really good at evolving from what they were back in 1995, a underground hip hop group. So when I joined the band in 2003, they came more of a pop act with Fergie, to 2018, to where they went back to the three guys and they did like a hip hop Masters of the Sun, um, a, um, a visual comic book. They're always doing, and then of course after that translation, where they dove more into the Latin and Spanish music genre, and even till now, they just released a song that I'm a co-producer on called East LA, which has social commentary about what's going on in Los Angeles, the ICE raids, and all the immigration issues. They always seem to evolve and be relevant and be a voice of the time. Of course, like with Where's the Love, that was a very pivotal song during that time in 2001. And they always found a way to reinvent themselves musically, image wise, and of course the message, which keeps us relevant all around the world, even more so around the world than in the United States. But like I said, with this particular song that they just came out with recently called East LA, it's gaining a lot of traction here in the United States, especially in California and Los Angeles. Will I Am, Taboo, and Apple Diap, they're geniuses at really tapping into different frequencies and really being great social stewards, and keeping the brand relevant.
East LA, when you're bringing that up, it's been described as something it's of a bold sonic celebration of culture, of identity. You've obviously worked with them for a long time. Could you carry us into kind of, because I know you're saying they're kind of consuming these times and going in different directions. Give us a peek behind the scenes. What is their creative process like? Do they sit down? Because I think we all wonder, like, is this just always reflecting what they're seeing? How do they start an idea and manifest it along the way?
Well, I would just, speak to East LA. We had a summer tour, and it's the most random places or the most random events. Like we're backstage before a show, and Will might have an idea that he'll spit out at me. He's like, "Yeah, man, we need to work on a song. You know, Maria, Maria, like take this." He gives me the marching orders. All right, I want you to take this part of the song, and then I want you to loop it, and then make a beat for that, but just using the Maria, Maria, East LA part, and then make a song from that. And then I have to take that and interpret what he means, because we've been doing this for years. I understand his language, and we throw ideas at each other, and for him and I, a lot of our songs that we've done together have started that way. From I'm a Bee, I'll send him an idea, and then he'll say, okay, take this idea, Michael Jackson, take the B part of the song, but play it backwards and then send it to me. You know what I'm saying? So it's always like a random thought that he has a great idea about that I take and then internalize and interpret and bring it back to him. So our creation process, also too, being on the road and being in different countries and uh, experiencing different cultures and nightlife, that also has a big part of how we interpret songs and find the frequency of the people because we're there with them. We see what's going on. We see in real time on stage how people react to certain things that we do live on stage, certain ideas that we come with on the fly on stage, and what Will would do if he sees that something's connecting and it's a great idea, he'll take his phone out right there on stage and have the crowd record it, and then that turns into a song. Like "Oh My God" with Usher. The "Oh" that came from a Paris TV show that we did. He had the crowd sing that, and he recorded it with his phone, and it turned into a song. So, our creative process, it really varies, but of course, Will is the mastermind of a lot of great ideas, and that's my job to bring them to light.
You were talking about I'm a Bee earlier. That was back in 2009, 2010 period. And
Yep,
of course, back then they also did the Super Bowl a year.
exactly. Yep.
So this is what blows me away about them. And I wanted to kind of gush for a minute and then get your thoughts on it. Because when you go back to the themes of the work, how they're trying to connect with people, not just musically, but on an emotional level, that's a degree of star power that very few groups or individuals ever see. That's a very select group of people that can say, "Hey, I did the Super Bowl. I had one of the biggest albums ever." Is there, because I was wondering this, is there like a coming down period from that? Do you have to, is it tough to kind of say, okay, we want to do something completely different? Or do you look forward to it after having like a big hit like that where you say, I want to do something different? What is it like to be at those high peaks and then now you've kind of got to go in a different way for yourself and you may be worried that listeners are going to follow along or not?
Right. I mean, that's a very vulnerable point that you mentioned. A lot of people don't talk about that, but that is a real thing that a lot of different artists deal with, and it's how you recover from that, which make people have long, outstanding careers. Of course, like you said, the 2009 to 2011, 12 run, like we're doing arenas in the United States, we doing stadiums abroad, Stade de France. We had 80,000 2 nights opening, well, headlining shows there. That was like the creme de la creme of doing soccer arenas during that run. So yeah, I totally hear that. But I think one thing, like I said, with the Black Eyed Peas, because it's three guys, when we have those down periods, everyone finds their new inspiration by doing their own individual projects. So right now it's kind of that in between time. There hasn't been a new Black Eyed Peas album in a couple years, but as you can see, Will I Am and Taboo released a project. East LA, Apple the App will have something coming in the coming months, and also one of the newest members of the group, J Ray Soul, she will have a song that's released. And I think that's how we keep the conversation going. That's how we keep each other inspired because we all work on each other's individual projects, and then when the time comes we'll form like Voltron and do a Black Eyed Peas album. But I think that's a very good point that you make when you get to the highest of the highs, how you handle quote unquote low of the low. And like I said, for these guys, because they're into different things, they're into, Will's into tech, Taboo's into, native and indigenous culture. And then, Apple Diap is the king of the Philippines. So he's doing amazing things for his community and country. I think that's what kind of keep these guys relevant, of course. Also doing things and passion projects that they love to do, which all ties back into the Black Eyed Peas brand and keep everyone in the conversation.
Going into the direction you've gone, being a musical director, obviously for this show that's currently happening and for the Black Eyed Peas and just in different capacities. I wonder with that because that transition is really incredible to think about. I kind of think about maybe someone who's been an athlete and now they're in the coaching staff and they're looking at the game through a different lens, right? What was that transition like? And have you enjoyed it? Or are there times where you sit there and say, "Oh, I wish I was doing different things," or have you really embraced it and like it in ways that maybe in past roles it's different from?
Oh no, man. I enjoy it, because I love being the boss. I love being playing the drums and touring sometimes. That's like being on the front lines of the army. You know what I'm saying? I gotta get on the plane, I gotta travel, I gotta wake up, then I gotta abuse my body by playing drums for 2 hours. You know what I'm saying? That's the hard work. Actually, the playing the drums is the easy part. It's the travel. It's all the other things that's involved to get to the show is what you get paid to do. Playing drums for 2 hours, that's fun. I would do that
Yeah.
regardless if I was getting paid or not, you know, So that's one part of it, but the musical director part of it is a different hat. It's a different set of responsibilities that I think a lot of people aren't capable, especially a lot of creatives. Let me be more specific. A lot of creatives focus on creative things and they have problems switching the brain to the business side of things. And I think that's what my superpower is because I do advocate for the musicians and the people that's working, but I do understand budgets and what the management and the artist is working with as well. So I try to be that great buffer in between to make sure everything's done fair for both sides. And a lot of times with other acts that I've musical directed, like Megan Trainor, for instance, I didn't play at all as a musician. I rehearsed the bands. I make sure all the arrangements are okay, make sure the artist is okay, and then I would go to maybe like the first week of shows, make sure everything is running, and then I'm done, and they're off to do what they do. So, um, as I got as I'm getting older, I like that role more because I get to spend time with my family. I get to be home. And like I said, I'm not getting beat up with the travel and all of those certain things. And I can repair my body, because you got to have this thing functioning right for everything else to work as well. But like I said, in my older years, as the gray start coming in, I kind of like sitting in the chair, and also too giving the next generation and the younger guys and girls a shot to have the opportunities that was afforded to me. So I feel like that's my duty as an elder statesman of the music industry is to kind of find young talent and give them a chance and see what they do with that chance. And a lot of people that I've given chances have really, taken off with their careers and stuff like that. So I'm pretty proud of that.
Well, I hear you on the travel. Goodness knows you did a lot more, I'm sure, than I did, but I know the feeling where you sit there and you wonder when your parents were growing up, they liked sitting on the couch a little bit, and you get a little bit older and you're like, I see the benefits now.
Yes,
Travel is rough.
I pay for this couch. I want to be able to enjoy it.
Yeah. I mean, it's yeah, it's long, it's exhausting. Kind of in line with that questioning is because more and more acts are doing Vegas these days.
Mhm.
Is that, and I know part of it's the money, obviously, but is that another part of the appeal that you're not traveling over the whole world, that people come to you?
Yes, absolutely. I would say that is one of the superpowers of the Backstreet Boys. Man, they have that venue packed to the brim from the bottom to the top, and it's from people all over the world that comes to Vegas to see them. And it's like every weekend, my wife just flew from Philly back to Vegas recently. And she was like, the majority of women on the plane was flying to Vegas to come see the show. And funny, like maybe last week, I met a couple Backstreet Boys fans, and I think it was maybe, let's say, Germany, like 10 years ago. And I happened to run into these same people in the hallway at the Sphere. I'm
Wow.
like, what are the odds? She's like, oh my God, Keith. I'm like, yeah, I remember you from like when we met at the hotel a long time ago. So it's like these people are loyal, diehard fans. They really love these guys. And like I said, multiple tickets have been bought to different shows from people that travel all over the world to come see these guys. So I think, and even with Usher as well, he has a really great residency in Vegas, and that kind of jumpstart the second half of his career now as well. With him doing Vegas, and he did the Super Bowl, and now he's doing other tours and things like that. So if done right, Vegas can really be an asset to really engage with your fan base from all over the world, give them a central place to meet you, for a time being, and then you go out abroad and meet them. So I think it's great.
With Vegas, there's such a rich legacy there. Like you said, Usher has been there recently. Bruno Mars, Lady Gaga, some of the biggest
Yeah.
acts, and of course the history there with Elvis and Sinatra, and just going all the way back to the 50s. Um, when you're looking over a show like this, and you've got such a legendary act as the Backstreet Boys, we talked a little bit earlier about the differences in the venue, but is it one of those moments? 'Cause I know you do this probably for every show, obviously. You have this, but it is one of those things where you sit there and go, whoa, I have to up my game because there is a huge legacy there. People are expecting one of the best shows of their life. Like how do you approach that from a creative standpoint where you sit there and say, okay, I've got a different canvas, now I've got to run with it.
Well, I think for me, audio wise and music wise, my canvas kind of stays the same. It's more so about creating moments. And that's what changes from tour to tour or show to show or venue to venue. And, working with the creative directors, Rich and Tone, who are amazing choreographers, creative directors who worked with Michael Jackson when they were like 15 years old. And Baz, who runs Silent House, that was the company that did all the content, and they worked very closely with the Sphere, doing all their content. Just all of us, and of course the Backstreet Boys themselves, just all really talking about what's the story, what are we trying to tell here, which was Millennium 2.0, taking that whole experience from 2000 and bringing it to now, and that kind of gave us the narrative. And what we wanted to do is to give people that nostalgic feeling. And now, me as a musical director, you can't go too crazy with arrangements and all the sparkles because you take away the feeling of what people originally felt. So it's about finding that fine balance of keeping the songs pure for the fan who loved the original song because it was a great song, but yet giving it some razzle dazzle, some sparkles, to make it interesting, exciting, fresh new canvas, as you say, over an old classic. And that's kind of revolved around the whole team. I go in and do what I hear and what I feel, and I take my arrangements and I let the guys hear it. They might say, "Oh, take this out, add this, add that," and of course, by the time I finished recording for my month in April to May, we had pretty much everything locked in, and all the rest is just little sprinkles on top. That's coming from the linking with the music with the content. So if we have like something moving across the screen or some flowers or a comet, in this case of Backstreet Boys, we have to put those things in to make sure they match what's going on visually. Um, but yeah, I really try to keep songs true to their original form because they're great songs, and I don't want to destroy the original feeling that the songwriters and producers and artists had 20 years ago, but yet I want to make it current so a new generation of Backstreet Boy fan can vibe with it, can like it, so they will be tied in another 20 years.
I love everything that you just said. I think one of the biggest complaints, which I'm actually okay with, I know some of us who are in the game who've been to a ton of concerts, we like it when songs are reworked. But for people who are paying top dollar who don't go every night, it's like I want the hits and I want them done the way that I listen to them. And so
Absolutely.
it's that's a tough audience to please. That's a tough audience to
Absolutely.
please. Um, One thing I did want to hit on um, was that not only obviously you've had a ton of commercial success, but you've also been very socially conscious. And we talked a little bit about that earlier. Especially in times like these, how do you maintain that balance? Because I know obviously for shows like this, you're mainly going in and you're doing the hits. I understand that's something separate, but in your own work and in your collaborations with others, how important is that to you, and how difficult can it be when we face times like we're in currently?
I think the overall or the overarching message is love, you know? Um, I think that's what keeps a lot of our songs, especially I'm speaking P's now, that keeps our songs in the mainstream and not too abrasive, if that's the word I could use, because everyone wants to feel seen and heard and loved, you know? And I think in these times, that's more than ever to have empathy for different people's paths, whether you're on a rural place in Kansas or you're in the heart of East LA. You know, it's about having empathy for the human condition. And I think that's what kind of keeps our conversation neither left nor right. It keeps it centered because everybody at the end of the day is human. Everybody at the end of the day has, at the core, want to take care of their families, want to have a great life and feel love from their peers or whatever have you, their family. And I think a lot of those core concepts of humanity is what's the DNA of a lot of what we do as the Black Eyed Peas. Also, a lot of the DNA of any song that I do with any artist. We try to keep it very. I like to keep my productions very centered around the human condition and not necessarily a personal thing about you against you or against you. But hey, we're all on this place called Earth, and we're all Earthlings. You know what I'm saying? We're all humans. So that's one thing we got in common, right? That I think that everybody can grasp onto, especially in very traumatic times as what we're going through now. And of course, me being an African American man, that's a part of my history and my people's history. And just seeing those parallels, in ICE raids and all the other things, I have compassion for that. I've seen this. I've seen this happen to my people. So why would I not want to, put my goodwill and put my voice into something to help the community of brothers and sisters get through tough times just like mine did.
Absolutely. So well said, and a great place as we reach time here to stop on. So thank you so much, Keith, for taking the time to chat with 360 today. Backstreet Boys are at the Sphere in Las Vegas through next month. It's an incredible show that's gaining a lot of attention, and tickets are going quickly. Great opportunity to see this legendary act in an incredible venue. So thanks to everyone for watching. Please stay tuned to 360degreesound.com as we continue to bring you coverage of music from all angles. Thanks, everybody.